welcome to Trust the Process, here with artist and musician Ruby Tingle, talking about her process. This is first episode, so I hope it goes okay. Right, let's start with, when did you start becoming an artist? And when did you start, because you're a singer as well, and you do collages. So when did you start like them? And did you become like both at the same time? Did you know which one you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of always been in me and a part of my life. I was encouraged to sort of luckily do what I wanted as a kid, and I did. I did piano lessons, which I stopped when I thought they weren't cool anymore, that kind of thing. And then at school we were kind of all in bands, so I really got back into music. But then I was also kind of doing my diploma at college in art and design.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the two. I think throughout education I was always kind of told to keep the two separate. So I think the moment when they became sort of entwined was later on. So when I was living in Manchester after uni. Starting to work with places like Paper Gallery, and suddenly I met this group of people who were like, oh no, it can all be one thing, and you have this practice that's you've got sound, you've got music, you've got performance, you've got collages. It's like it can all be one, and I think like the encouragement to follow that has been the making of me, really.
Well, you say that I went to your exhibition at Whittaker Gallery.
Yeah.
And that was very much like, I don't know how to put it, but like a 4D like experience.
Yeah, multi-sensory.
yeah, because you had obviously your collages and your artwork on the walls. You did a singing performance, and as well you had them like aromas.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put that, but where you can the scent, you can smell it as you're coming in, and obviously I've known you for a while, and there's this swamp-like essence to most of your work. And it was that when you fell in, because we took some photos a couple of months before that, and I just went back into that environment.
Yeah, that's good. Because I think a huge part of my practice is sort of drawing from the outside and putting that into spaces, but also vice versa, and sort of really responding to collections and intervening with things. So obviously the Whittaker show was about sort of highlighting their collections and their taxidermy, but relating that back to my own life, which obviously, as you have experienced, covered in nail stains.
The bug bites all over my leg.
Yeah, it was great.
It was fun day.
I wanted to sort of bring the swamp into the gallery to talk about the collection from that perspective in terms of highlighting wetlands conservation and things like that. Scent and sound, for me it's like, I think the last thing to be plugged in when we were installing the show was the sound installation, and for me it just wasn't the show until that was playing.
So how did you go from like doing art and design at college to do them collages that are really like taxidermy with animal specific and stuff like that? And how did that lead into your singing and your music as well?
I think like everyone has a sort of like pool of influences, don't they? Different sort of the things they like, and I think.
Has that always been since you was a kid, kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, like, so I'm trying to journey back. When I talked about this at the talk at the Whittaker, but when I was a kid, I was very much, I joked saying, like, nothing must just change, because I was always wearing, like, big dresses and in the mud, playing with frogs, and I was very quiet, and I would just be sort of drawing in the corner, and I think, those things have always been there, and obviously when you go through art education, you're exploring everything. So I think they've always been kind of synced up, but then sort of finding your own place in life. I think that sort of like binds everything together. For me, having sort of new ownership as like an adult of these environments that I love, that's sort of grounded where the practice is.
How does that lead into your singing then? So is the process the same? Do you know when you're coming up with ideas?
Yeah.
For making the collages to the actual singing, to the writing the music?
Yeah, kind of. So like with music, I think I always start with words. So if I'm like walking somewhere, or even just like sometimes you're reading a book and like one word, it's like, ooh, like I'm quite, it's the word synesthesia?
You're smarter than me. I don't know.
where certain things are colours and words that you can sort of see words in music.
Yeah.
So like just one word or phrase can be like really inspiring to me, and I think it kind of forks off in my brain. Like a part of my brain will go like, ooh, and sort of see images and things, and that starts to bubble away over there, and then as soon as I've written that down, it's like, oh, I've got a starting point now where I can maybe start to write about something. Then lyrics happen, and then sounds come on top of that.
So is that your like main inspiration? Like, what else inspires you? Like, do you know when you're growing up doing that art and doing your little drawings? Was there any like artists that stuck out or anything like that?
Oh yeah, huge. Like, I mean, when I was at college, I really got into the surrealists and the women surrealists. I sort of found, my calling with them. But also artists like Rebecca Horn and Kiki Smith. And then, as I've developed, I like so many different kinds of art now, and none of them really look anything like that's usually the way, isn't it? But we always talk about nature and the swamp being the pinnacle of a practice, but loads of stuff. I mean, I've always been into mythology and literature, like comics, film. There's just like gothic horror. There's a huge sort of everything that I kind of deal with in life tends to like bleed back. And the animals as well that I keep at home, like my pets and stuff.
Yeah, I felt like, I don't know if you've seen it, but do you know Poor Things?
Yeah.
Do you know with Emma Stone? I watched that and I was like, I need to take photos like this.
Exactly. I think as artists, like the pool of inspiration is just enormous. You kind of feel like you're just grabbing at things.
I don't know if you had Fiona. Do you know Manchester College?
Yes.
I can remember her telling me, just like beg, borrow, steal. Yeah. Anything you see, anything that gives you ideas, anyone wants to work, just go for it. Absolutely. Make it your own.
Yeah. That's kind of like what collage artists do, especially anyway. Because I was having this conversation the other night, saying someone came up to me at Manchester Art Fair a few years ago, and they said, what I always really love about your work is that it's so original. And I said, well, that's just so weird because it's made out of everything that we already have.
I think there is a difference though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I would never say it was like appropriation. Like it is like literally unique.
Yeah.
You're taking a little bit of that, and you're making it something totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is just what we do in life. Everything. We're an accumulation of everything that we experience.
Was you like your family, like your mum, your dad, were they like artists or like into the art and stuff growing up as well?
Yeah, my dad's an architect.
Oh, really?
And he was also doing music in bands when I was a kid. That was like my first little job when I was like 8 or 9. I used to help them carry the amps into the pubs and my Ribena. So I was like around that a lot. And my mum's always been into everything creative and fashion, and she actually sort of supplies helps like create all the costumes and everything for shows and things like that. Yeah.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really nice. It's like I'm really lucky. Like my parents they were kind of like just really encouraging.
Yeah.
So there is a sort of history of that kind of thing in the family.
Yeah. Do you know, since you was a kid and stuff, how has your process changed from like growing up to like when you're into high school and all that? How has it changed to like now?
So
where you're doing like massive exhibitions in the Whittaker and stuff like that.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes you have a look at yourself and you're like, oh my God, how am I doing this? It's mad because sometimes you still see yourself as like a kid just sat with a sketchbook. I mean, in some ways not a lot's changed, but I think obviously you process matures and your inspiration matures and you have to also learn how to actually function in the arts like as a sort of industry and a business.
Does that change then? Do you know, like when you're making something for yourself until you've got like a brief to make something?
Kind of. I mean, I quite enjoy being given like a brief or a challenge if it's like a group show and it's like, how am I gonna sort of make that while still being me?
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, I usually kind of set my own kind of briefs and challenges and targets, and like I really enjoy writing proposals.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah. And I think for me, like I write so many that don't even maybe get sent off, but sometimes that can just be like the seed of an idea, and then it's like,
you need to help me, because I'm awful. I do like a sentence, I'm like, I don't like it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm quite lucky in that respect. I don't mind. I mean, sometimes applications are like a nightmare for everyone. Like, but sometimes it's just, I mean, I call it a proposal, but if you can just write something down that maybe you want to do, I think that gives it like power, doesn't it? You know.
How do you know when something's finished then?
It's a nightmare, isn't it? So I think with music, it's kind of easier because you get to a point where you kind of hand it over to someone else.
Yeah.
And I like to do that just because it's like fresh ears, isn't it, as well? But I get to a point where I'm like, okay, this is how I want it to sound. And then you kind of go into the studio and mix and master, and then it's sort of like, not out of your hands because it's usually still there for the process, but there's a definite kind of end point of like, we've only got 2 hours in the studio, so now you've got to get out and it's done.
Is that with like a producer or something, like Danny or someone?
Yeah. Me and Danny work together a lot, like finishing everything up. So yeah.
Sorry. What? Oh, it's Margaret. If I'm downstairs. Don't worry, Margaret.
You can cut.
Yeah, no. Keep it. Sorry, Margaret.
But yeah, with art, like I do struggle. Like some days in the studio, I'm like, you know, sat with all these like bits of animal skin and paper and dyed paper, and there's just crap everywhere, and it's like you spend out, and I think sometimes if you get like a fixed idea of what you want to make in your head, it's the worst thing, because then you keep trying and it just doesn't work, and then suddenly at the end of the day I'll just move one piece, you know, kind of, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's
really,
and it's so stupid, but there's something, I don't know, it's just like you have like this gut feeling of like, oh, that's how it needs to be, but sometimes it can take so long.
I'm a bit like that. Do you know when I'm editing a photo?
Yeah.
And I shot it, and the colours like I see, and all the colours on my laptop, and I'm like, I just need to push it a little bit more. Yeah. And I'll leave it for like a week, and I'll just go on there. I'll do something for like 2 seconds, and I was like, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
or I'll edit it, love it, and then hate it.
And then down the line, I make stuff all the time, and I'm like, oh, this is
I feel like I don't really know until I printed it and it's in a frame. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to see things in context, I think, as well. Like doing like the last show you were talking about, the Whittaker, like that. You know, solo exhibition's really scary because it's all on you. It's all on you, and you can collaborate with as many people as you want, but you know, at the end of the day, it's like and
Ruby Tingle show was not great.
It's
it was amazing.
It was amazing. Secret opinions, like it was rubbish.
Yeah, clip it like this.
But you can sometimes feel like the weight of the creative world on your shoulders when you're trying to just create, which is difficult sometimes and can kind of hinder the process of making. Have you
ever had any? Do you know when you work with a producer or something like that, and you've sent off your work or your recordings of your music, and they've sent something back that you don't like, or or they're like trying to change direction of what you're actually trying to do?
Yeah. So I mean, me and Danny have worked together for years now, and we know he knows how I want to sound now, and obviously with Dirty Freud, because that's his project and his band. When I sing that, when I send him my vocals back, I'm just happy for him to do what he wants. Because it's like, I think having like.
You've done your part.
I've done my part, It's like respecting each other's sort of like creative control areas.
Yeah.
But like back in the day, I would send him off all this mad music, and he'd send it back, obviously trying something out, which he thought was really cool, and I'd just be like, I hate it. But then we just worked around it, and carried on, and I think working with people that are cool and not too precious about them, I think is the key.
Have you had that with your artwork as well, where you've got a brief, you've done the work, sent it off, and they've gone, listen, this is not.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you kind of feel like that every time you apply for something.
Yeah.
Don't you? It's like, I'm not good. Well, I spoke, like, because David Hancock, who, well, paper's closed now.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's director of paper. When I first met him, it was really funny because he kind of really ripped into my work.
Really? Yeah.
Well, as curators should and do when they're kind of considering you to mentor you or to take you on at the gallery. But it was it was probably the best thing that happened because he just simplified everything and made me see like what I needed to focus on and what I needed to leave out. And then that took me down a certain path for a while, and obviously I've developed from there.
I've had to miss some stuff a few times where like I've either worked with a model that's orchestrated the shoot when I was really starting out, and they've gone, "No, can you edit a bit different?" Or I had this tutor at Manchester College. I don't know if you remember him. He was only there for a year. This guy called Ander. He was like a curator. Used to be a photographer.
Right.
Really nice guy. Guy. But he was like, "This is crap. This is crap. This is crap."
Oh, God.
It's like, why are you doing it like this? You're better than this kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, stop looking at like Instagram and doing street videos. Like, look at a story and try and develop it a bit more. And at the time, I was like, I'm gonna do one.
Yeah, like I hate you. How could you say
I was like,
that?
why are you even talking to my work about? Yeah. But then, like years later, I'm like, hey, it's probably right, to be honest.
Yeah, sometimes it just feels really harsh, doesn't it? But actually,
I get really defensive. I was like, no.
Of course, because it's like your baby, isn't it? Your work. It's like so precious to you. It's really tough.
To be fair, objectively, normally they're normally right, to be honest. I'm like, I probably should have changed that. I shouldn't have gone too far with that.
Yeah, but I think part of it is you kind of find your own voice with that, don't you? Like as you grow, because like even with shows and everything, I look at stuff and I'm like, I could have done that better, or maybe I shouldn't have gone down that road, or what was I thinking doing that? And then some things that I maybe hated at the time, I'm like, actually, I think there's something in this. So you kind of become your own critic, don't you?
Definitely.
Which can be healthy and unhealthy.
I think that's the thing. It's like when someone sees your show as well, I think it's important for them to try and understand what you was trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that Andy as well. I can remember him telling me what's the first thing you do when you walk into a gallery space? Do you like look at the work, or do you look at the piece of writing next to it explaining the work?
Yeah.
And I was like, just look at the work, and if it's not great, I'll just move on. Yeah. And he's like, the first thing to do, look at the writing, see what they're trying to do, and then when you see the work, you see it in a different light.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's important to do with your own work.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's explaining it right. So.
And making sure that you're not like way off.
Yeah.
Some people feel like they're saying one thing, but it's actually doing another, which is, I think when I'm working on something and collaborating with people, those collaborators kind of become like a sort of core critique group, because you find yourself obviously having to be immersed in the work with other people, so they can sort of give you that kind of feedback along the way, which is
helpful.
Really valuable.
Do you work with people a lot then, or?
Yeah, so like the scent you mentioned, showed my friend Stephen Carver. He's he's just this incredible scent artist, and it's all. He has these crazy books. They're like books of spells, but they're like maths, and it's all like it's just incredible, chemical creations. He can make anything smell like anything, whether it's real or unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a sort of what's the word? Sort of polymath, because he's a composer.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But then he's got into olfactory work, and now he's started to exhibit by himself as well. But we work together a lot, and for me, that's sort of like always the initial stage of an exhibition or a project, because I'll say like, "Oh, and can we make it smell?" And he'll come round, and then I'll have to sort of explain to him like what my ideas are, and try and actually translate that into scent. So that can be really hard. But that sort of lays down like a good sort of core idea of where things are going.
That's brilliant, that is.
Yes, and it's fun.
Yeah. How do you schedule your time? How do you know when? Do you know when you creating a piece of art, collage, or you're writing some music, or you're recording studio, how do you schedule all that? How do you know I've got that day to make art, that day to sing, that day to go off to Sweden and do a tour?
It's hard. I think I'm like hyper organised, kind of OCD, so that helps.
Really?
And I plan my sort of months up, and then I plan the weeks up, and then I plan the days up. So like every day I have like an alarm that goes off that's like music time or like singing practice, even if it's just for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like before I came here today, I was like, I've got 10 minutes.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just do it like that, and then obviously in my head I'm like, okay, say if I've got a big project on as well, it's like, well, I need to spend sort of 2 days in the studio this week doing this to move that part forward. And if I've got a big project, it's like I kind of section it out, like, well, what needs to be done first? Like when we did that photo shoot last year, I was like, okay, that sort of needs to be done here because it's going to form artwork for the vinyls that need to be sent off. So you just kind of have to like look at it all like a big kind of calendar pie and and figure it out, and then just be like super organised. And if I know I've got stuff coming up, like we were really lucky to go to Sweden for Future Echoes Festival 2 weeks ago. Obviously knew had that coming up, and we're kind of Dirty Freud kind of on tour now till sort of like May, June.
Yeah.
So I know I've got all of those things to factor in. So it's like, well, I need to have lots of rest, and I need to sort of exercise, and I need to be working on sort of like rehearsals and things like that. So it's just trying to manage it all. And then,
do you when you exercise?
Yeah.
Do you wear like sports clothes?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Everyone always asks me that. Everyone's always like, I just can't imagine you running. It's like, are you
not
in
even
a dress?
No. I've never seen you not in a dress.
I mean.
That dress, black coat.
that wouldn't work, would it? Yeah, no, Just
can't imagine you like nipping in JD and get some jogging.
I know, right? No one sees me. Okay. It's a secret.
Yeah. Oh, God. Please post on these stories and it's like,
one day I will. One day. What everyone's been waiting for.
I was actually going to ask you a question. No, do you know when you organise all that? Do you do it on like like a big board? Do you have like an app that you use or anything like that?
Yeah, just like I usually do like notes on my computer screen. So I just write notes, section it all out, and then I have my calendar on my phone and a paper calendar on the wall. As many calendars as possible, and sort of that usually helps.
Brilliant.
And then just notes on my phone, like what I've got to do, reminders, stuff like that.
Have you always been like that then, or is that something you built up over time?
I think, well, when we're younger, we're all a bit like haphazard and crazy. Definitely went through that bit of just chaos. But I think, when leaving uni and kind of going self-employed and trying to figure out work and life as a creative person, it kind of forces you to slowly get into those habits. You have to sort of be your own boss, and so it just comes with the territory.
I know, like recently I've just become self-employed.
Yeah.
And before that I was working like 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And I had my son like the other 3 days, 4 days. Yeah. And it's hard to make music or do art in that time. Yeah. And now I've become self-employed. Yeah. I try and get in the studio as much as I can.
Yeah, it forces you.
It does.
To do it, I think. Yeah.
I think that's like, if you actually really want to do something, just go for it, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to give it.
Yeah. So just going back to your collages and stuff a minute. How do you decide like what materials and stuff to use for that, and where you're going to get the pieces from that you're going to use in the collage?
Right. Yeah. Good question. Materials wise, it's anything that's left over, just in general from life.
So just most of it come from your house or
it's my stuff usually. So like a lot of the fabrics that I used in the pieces in the Whittaker were like old dresses that sort of had it. But like I loved the fabric and things, so I was like, right, that's gonna go in. I collect like like reptile-y handbags
Yeah.
and stuff. They fall apart after a while, especially if they're like super old and actually real skin. So that then we end up with a bag of those.
Oh really?
I collect like plastic animals, plastic frogs and stuff. So a big box of those. Like everything kind of gets put into the studio compartments, and then it's a case of sort of like just when I sit down in the studio, it's probably like, well, what colours am I feeling today, or
really
and then I just sort of sift through everything and kind of start to put things together, and it's like, oh, that's nice, oh, that's and then the cutouts from the books and things. There's like a couple of old really cool bookshops near where I live, and just I love those like old natural history books and encyclopedias and things, and I did I can just use. I was talking to Rob about this the other night, saying you would think that you want to cut out something more. What's the word? Something more of. I know what I'm trying to say. I forgot what I was saying. Like so, if you've got like a picture like with a bird in it.
Oh yeah.
But I used to kind of cut out figurative. Sorry, that's the word I was thinking of. So I used to cut out everything much more figuratively and have these much more like sort of obvious narrative scenes. Whereas now I tend to go more for like textures and things. So I read the books upside down because sometimes that helps the parts of the picture sort of abstract themselves.
Yeah.
And you can cut. Yeah, the cutting is almost like a way of drawing.
Yeah. I love that. That's clever, isn't it? So so you never buy anything new for it, like specifically for a project then, or it's always like the studio itself is a sort of ongoing process. So I mean for the show at the Whittaker I did like get. Do you know when you've organised? You've organised time and stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any points where it's not working, where you've got no motivation, where you feel like this is not working, I don't know what I'm going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I've made it look like I'm just like this art robot. This is how I do it. And of course, like there's sometimes days or whole weeks where you're just like, I am so not there right now. I usually just try and do something else. Like fortunately, I've got sort of two sides to practice, so I can sort of ping pong backwards and forwards between art and music. Sometimes you just don't want to do anything, do you? No. I think that's not. People act like you have to be motivated and productive all the time, and you don't. And everyone thinks everyone is because everyone's on Instagram saying how motivated and productive they are, and you never see the bits where it's like, actually, I'm just gonna sit in bed today and watch some TV, or it's
earlier, like I was speaking to my mate, but I really struggle with being productive, like all the time. I mean, set times and stuff. So when I come to the studio, I make myself do it, but sometimes it doesn't work. And then talking to my mate earlier, mate Luke, and he was like, was on about it. He's got his working on a new project. He's like, I was like, oh, when they come out in print, these look amazing. And he was like, oh, I'm not sure, I want to do an exhibition and stuff, but I've got like 22 more projects I want to work on. I was like, 22? I was like, mate.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I was like, I ain't got I've never had 22 ideas in my life.
Yeah, 22 is even a stretch for me. But I don't know, some people are just... some people are very good at like spinning a lot of plates at the same time.
Sorry.
No, okay.
But I say, do you know, how did you first start to find work? How did you get find clients and stuff that are willing to buy your work, or find where your music fit and where to try and sell it? Yeah.
A lot of the art side of that was paper gallery, like you mentioned, because after uni, I didn't do that well at uni. I knew I still wanted to make art.
Did you do fine art at uni?
I did, yeah. But I ended up on the dole and living in bedsit.
Really?
Yes, but I was just kind of getting my life together and making art.
Yeah.
And I just carried on basically doing that and kept pushing and kept putting up little shows in cafes and stuff like that. Like anywhere that I went to where I was a regular, I was just can I put my work on? which is a fine way to do it. And then I the pinnacle moment of things changing was because I was a model, as you know.
Yeah.
I was working at the college, and this artist came over from America to do this residency that was running in Manchester at the time. Where a few different international artists would come over and live in a house for sort of like a couple of months.
Yeah.
Do a little show. And I got recommended as a model for this artist called JJ Foley, who came over from America, and we got on really well. I kind of ended up becoming a part of the residency.
Oh, really?
Because one of the other artists had her laptop stolen while she was there. So she had to rethink. So I ended up doing my first piece of performance art with her as part of this open thing. And then I met David, who just opened Paper Gallery. He came to the Open Studios, and then suddenly it was a case of me hassling him with proposals all the time. I've got this idea. And then he kind of... he gave me a show and residency and that kind of stuff, and then that just opened loads and loads of doors to the sort of the community, like the arts community in Manchester, it's just kind of gone from there, really.
How does that work now then? Do you just, is it now people come to you, or?
It's a mixture of both. Like, I still always apply for like loads of things all the time, but I'm having one of those years where it's like rejection.
Really?
And you're just like, great. But that just happens sometimes, you know. But it's a combination. Like I say, I write a lot of proposals, and I think like I know where my work fits now and at the moment, but like that can always change. And then with music, I'm still trying to figure out where my solo music sort of sits. I think with Dirty Freud, things are going really well, and we've kind of found our audience. But it's a little bit more difficult with my whole process and practice, because the music and the art are so linked. It's hard for me to take them apart, and sometimes different industries want them to be different, which comes back to where I was before joining them.
Is that easier now that you've got your own record label kind of thing, that you can just do what you want and try and send it out?
It's definitely like a space where you've got creative control, which is really important to me anyway, and I think being on an independent label as well, for me that's what it's about in music. So it's a good space for me to be able to sort of harness that, and as well because my role in the label is sort of fusing arts and music. I'm sort of like what's the word? Like role model for it, pin up for it. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like, I'm kind of I'm enforcing what I'm trying to do at the same time within the label. So.
And you're giving other people the chance as well and stuff.
Because I mean, some musicians they don't want to go down that road, but some they're like, actually, like I'd quite like to do that. I'd quite like to do a video like this, or I've seen this artist's work, and I'd like them to do my single art, or
How is that then, being a musician, an artist, a singer, and all that? And then, obviously, you've got young artists on your label, seeing their processes and stuff like that. How is it, like, different to yours kind of thing? And are you trying to help them, or?
I think everyone's is totally different. Other people's processes can sometimes look to you like chaos, but to them it just absolutely works, And everyone works completely differently. I think for us it's just sort of like being able to, as long as they're in touch with us and they don't kind of go off grid and disappear, then it's all good. We're quite happy for people to work in whatever way they want to work in, as long as the work happens.
Do you enjoy it as well? Like,
of course. It's like
seeing their progress and from where they start and where they are now.
Absolutely, and I mean we're only 3 years in, so we've still got a long way to go. But we'll get there. It's good beginning.
Have you got any advice for any young artists finishing school and college and university that want to make it as an artist, like you have, like touring Sweden, making it to Whittaker, solo exhibitions?
probably like a recap of a lot of the stuff we've talked about today. So like, following your gut and being true to yourself, but also taking the harsh advice, even though it's horrible at the time. Like respect people that are older and more experienced than you, and if they've seen something in you, it's like take it. Yeah. Say yes to everything. And know who your people are, and be kind. Yeah. Don't be fake. Yeah. People can smell it a mile off. It's like it's great having like artistic and creative communities, but some people, I think they go down that route of just having to talk to and be friends with everyone. It's you don't. Like you find your people that you connect with and you want to work with or you want to keep in touch with. Yeah. It's like if everyone just did that, it would be a lot more honest. Yeah. I feel like work with people that inspire you as well. Yes, absolutely. And then, like, when you work with them, you get a little buzz out of it and stuff like that. Yeah. You can collaborate with. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And don't be... No, I'm jumping on your... I'm about to say, it's like, at the start, don't be afraid to do things for free. Yes. Like, you're going to have to. Yeah. Like I was saying, I was just going to bars and where I was drinking and just being like, can I put my work on the... you're not going to make money probably for a little bit. You've just got to be honest with yourself about that. But make other things work around it, Yeah, I think we're done. Yeah. Right, thank you for listening, watching, and all that. This video was sponsored by no one, because it's the first one.